Oh, oh boy. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Team, welcome back and happy 2026. I'm not going to lie, we are feeling fired up. Word of the year is joy. I originally had commit in early December, and I was thinking to myself, I will probably commit either way, but what I probably won't do is ensure that I am enjoying the process and the journey and the path, which to the last episode was something that was a challenge for me last year. And so in leaning into 2026, my goal is to tackle the year with joy, soaking up every single little moment. And it really, for the first time in like 13, 14 months, feels like I turned into a new chapter. So I'm hoping you're starting your year off on the right foot. You feel like you left things behind in 2025 that you needed to leave behind. I mentioned this on the year-end video, but part of me didn't like to have to put that out just because of the tone. It came across like little sad boy energy, and like it was what I experienced, but I am so grateful to be what feels like on the other side, and surely there will be parts of that, but today the message is much different. Feels like there's momentum behind us, and I want to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart and something I've done my whole life, but I think the world needs more of, and that is hosting. How to host your own experiences, dinners, events. Now, before I jump into tips and tricks, I want to preface this by every one of these rules or tips has an exception. So most importantly, if you are someone that has never hosted before, or the idea of hosting scares you a lot, the most important thing you can do is keep it as simple as possible. What I've learned in hosting hundreds of events now at this point, typically intimate events, is that people don't really care about all the extra BS. They care about connecting with people that they're interested in, they love, they're friends with, or potentially like-minded people, somebody that might grow their mind, whatever. But before I give out any of these tips and tricks, simplicity. And I'm talking to myself right now because I have been so bad about this historically. So, tip number 1 to make you the host of the year. This is one that we incorporated into supper, but I tried to do it for any social gathering. When you invite people over, I'll speak for myself. When I'm going to an event, especially if I don't know people, I'm walking up the stairs, and at times I can feel socially anxious. My heart starts to pump a little bit, and sometimes I even get a little lump in my throat. The best thing you can do as a host is help dissipate that energy. So when somebody is walking through the front door, tip number 1 is to be greeted at the door. When I walk through the door, I want to feel safe. So I want you to tell me, hey, we're taking jackets right here. Let me get that from you. Drinks are on the far side. We're having people show up for the next 15 minutes. If you want to do a lap around and introduce yourself to some people, great. We'll get started here in the next 15 minutes. So immediately that tells me as the guest that my anxiety can be put to rest because I'm being told what to do. Okay, so I'm giving you my jacket, which typically is kind of awkward to get off. I am going to go get a drink. That's going to be like another few minutes. And then you're giving me permission to talk to other people. There's another layer to this that I can speak to, but when people are walking into a room, the key is that they feel safe and that you do whatever you can to help ease their anxiety. Okay. So this one is something that I developed later with supper and journal, but I do believe that every event or experience that you host should have a focus or a theme. Now, if it's just like a relaxed hang amongst friends, I get it. I do that too. But when you're curating a room, to me, that room should have an idea of what they're getting into. Not every event or experience should be for everyone. Priya Parker says that events should have edges, which means you want to draw a line in the sand for who this makes sense for and who this doesn't make sense for. You want to polarize. Somebody that enjoys rock climbing isn't going to enjoy maybe putting a bouquet of flowers together. So you have to know who you're inviting and curate with a purpose. So an example of this, something I love to do is called a Jeffersonian style dinner, which is basically you pick a topic or put forth a question and then have a conversation around a dinner table where you speak to that given topic. So for instance, that could be artificial intelligence. That could be, what does home feel like? That could be regret or purpose. And the idea is the whole conversation is centered around that theme. Not for everyone and not for every experience. These are typically more intimate dinners, but I do find the deeper you can go on one thing, typically the better. Jeffersonian style dinners are a good way to do that. In terms of theme, it should be simple. Complex ideas most of the time do not translate the way that you want them to. And I have done this hundreds of times where I would just overcomplicate things. The message doesn't come through. I give people 3 conversation starters that are all over the place, and it doesn't really do anything. Simplicity, most things in life, always wins. And experiences, events, dinners are no different. Keep it simple. You will have way more fun, and your guest will have a better idea of what they're getting into. You should be able to explain your why to a child. It shouldn't be that deep. Now, you can get deep during the event or experience, but you don't need to make it like super complex. You don't want to freak people out when you're inviting them over. Example of this, having edges. I gave you an example, but another one, we hosted a run club a couple years ago. And at first, I just posted, hey, we're doing a pop-up run club. Come through. There were people that wanted to run a 7-minute mile. And then there were people expecting that our pace was going to be like 11 minutes. And because I didn't clarify, there was confusion and our leads ended up getting spread apart. And so you want to build your focus or purpose around an event that has edges. You want to polarize. It's not for everyone. It's for the people that you are thoughtfully curating and bringing together. Okay, this is another good one. Structure in an event is responsible and allows for more vulnerability. So when people feel like they are taken care of, that allows them to rest their anxiety, like we talked about, and allow them to have deeper flow of conversation. An example, having a time for when people arrive, when people leave, but also the pre, the event, and then the after, important. So break down your event or experience into multiple parts and stick to your time if you can. Less time is better than more time. So I think an hour and a half to 2 hours as an expectation is great. If people want to stay longer and you can, awesome. But to me, I always like to undersell and let people stay if they really want to. Structure also lets people run loose within a given topic. One thing that I think in the last year, 2 years, I've been thinking about more is something called vulnerability matching, which is if you expect people to come into a room, especially with people that they don't know, you have to show them that you are prepared to be vulnerable first. So that can start with the invite, or it can start as you begin to share or you're having conversation. My favorite analogy with vulnerability matching is thinking of a weed whacker and having very tall grass, taking that weed whacker and cutting right to the root. All right. That top part, the tall part of the grass, is fluff. That's conversation fluff. That is small talk that if you allow people to walk into a room and you don't have structure, you don't have a why, people will just fluff it up. You don't want that. Get rid of the fluff by cutting through the BS, create structure in conversation so people can get deep and get right to the root so that they become better friends or they learn more from each other, whatever it may be. Then that creates a more powerful experience. That also goes hand in hand with just how you approach, thoughtfulness with an event. Do people know that you're taking this seriously? And if they do, then they will as well. If it's laid back, people won't show up on time, and that's okay. There's a room for that, but just know what you're going for. Vulnerability matching for me, another example, hosting 8 of my New York City neighbors over for dinner this week. And I'm so excited. I've wanted to do this forever and just never made it happen. I know there's a decent chance that it could be awkward at first, but I asked them to bring something that reminds them of home. And I told them that could be an object, it could be a book, it could be a treat, anything. When I sent the invites, I used old disposable pictures that I had from when I was a kid. And most of these pictures are they're not the cutest pictures. They're kind of pictures of my family. They're a little bit random, but they are a part of me. And it is a little bit vulnerable. And I hand wrote the notes to show that this is something I'm taking seriously, and almost as a heads up to take that part of the experience seriously. Vulnerability matching, important one. Set the tone early with the invite, set expectations, go from there. One thing I try to do when hosting is to keep people off their phones, and I'll touch on this in a little bit, but the way that you do that is by ensuring that people know that, again, they're going to be taken care of. So I always tell people when they show up and they begin meeting people and I'm introducing them, I'll connect you guys after. And immediately following the event, I create a group chat or I make introductions and I put everyone in the same either Instagram chat or text thread. That allows people to connect. But more importantly, during the event, it doesn't mean that people are pulling out their phones, exchanging contact information, and disrupting the experience. Bringing a phone out during an experience is the worst thing that you can do as a host. You have to set the tone. And if you set the tone, make sure it's clear when you expect people to be offline. So if it's an event where we are going to be like turning phones off, I say we are going to be offline from XYZ to XYZ. Giving people that heads up allows them to know what they're getting into. And again, allows them to play in that space versus be like, oh shit, I didn't tell people I was going to turn my phone off for an hour and a half, or thinking about something that they should be checking. Expectations, really important. On the topic of expectations, I like to set expectations relatively low. And I do that, for instance, with giving your guest an idea of what's going down and the thoughtfulness behind it, but not setting expectations very high is something I had to learn along the way that I wish I learned much sooner. What does that mean in practice? You don't, at least for me, I don't like to have to sell an event. I don't like to say there's going to be unlimited wine, cocktails, tons of food, blah, blah, blah. I like to say we're having a gathering. Here's what we're talking about, or here's the activity. And then I like to over deliver with drinks, maybe some bites. That low expectation and over delivering over time as a host builds trust so that people know that you're not going to like sell them on something. Another example, one of my favorite authors hosts something called a walk and talk. He gets a group of people, they go to another part of the world, start in one place, walk to another. And I think it's a fascinating concept. But one point that he's made is you want to set expectations low for a trip like that. For instance, he might say on the path and on the walks, toilets are going to be squat only, right? So you might not have like proper facilities. That's not always the case probably, but people go in with that mindset and it's a natural filter. The worst thing you can feel as a host is that you promise something that you can't deliver on. So to me, I like to set the expectation relatively low, build trust over time, and then for me personally, shoot higher than the expectation and try to deliver something that people remember. The most important thing you can do and remember with hosting is to just reduce the hurdles. Make it as easy on yourself as possible to actually host. A lot of times, myself included, I come up with these ideas for what something needs to be. I need this chef, or I need this photographer, or I need this creative feature. Oh, I need at least 25 people. If not, then it might feel small. Reduce those hurdles in your mind and understand that, especially in today's age where people are dying for connection, that if you gather with just a simple intention and are clear about why you are gathering those people, they're going to be so grateful that you did that. And as a host, when you begin to do this more and build consistency within this skill, it starts to come back around. Because guess what? When you invite someone and they have a great time and they get to know you more because you're dope, if you're listening to this pod, then that means they're going to start inviting you to stuff. And I feel like I, at least at times in my life, have been reactive with community. I think what has ended up working much better, even like in starting this year, is when I'm proactive and I'm curating a room that I personally am excited to be in, to learn from people that are different from me, to learn a new skill, then my community just naturally grows because you begin to attract those types of people in your life. Right before I recorded this, I got a message from Professor T, and it was a podcast from Sean from My First Million. He had a conversation with Mr. Beast, and Mr. Beast was talking about how people always ask him, like, give me some advice for my YouTube channel. Like, what should I be posting? How did you get to where you got? And he says, I always tell people, post 100 videos and come talk to me. Within that timeline, focus on one thing for each video that you can do better. Applying that to hosting, there are so many things that you can elevate within the world of hosting. You can make better food. You can spend more money on a venue. You can pick a different activity or, try to get different kinds of people, but make it easy on yourself and just try to get like 1% better at something every time you host. And slowly, with consistency, you'll develop excitement towards this, and it will become a skill and something that, in my opinion, is one of the peak parts of the human experience. Bringing people together, especially those that you care about, to me, is one of the core reasons we are alive. Team, I'm not going to lie. This is going to be one of the best years of our life. I hope you are sprinkling joy into your life and you are fired up to host some people that you love. I care about this deeply and know that it's something that can be so anxiety provoking. But if you just put yourself out there, people will take care of themselves. You just have to create the structure and the space to do so. I believe in you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Let's go get it, 2026.